You guys want to build a rig that doesn't break out on the trails? Check it out. So I'm Dan, Warpaint JKU on Instagram. This is Warpaint Off-Road. Let's dive in. Let's talk about how to build your rig so that it is the most durable, unbreakable rig you could possibly build for the trails, all within your budget. In this video, we're going to talk about a couple of misconceptions about building your rig that kind of misguide a lot of people.
Who the heck are you? What are you talking about? I'm Santa Claus.
In the parts that they choose to put on their vehicles. So let's dive on in and let's talk about it. So there's basically 4 categories that I always think about when I'm building a rig in this garage. But the first and most important category to think about is weight.
What? Something's wrong with the scale.
A lot of people think that the lighter a rig is, the longer it's gonna last. Yes and no. But don't fool yourself into thinking that you have to spend tons and tons and tons of cash on all the aluminum parts ever to make your rig durable. Heavy duty parts are heavy. Forget about trying to build it super lightweight. What I'm talking about when I say weight, the weight of your rig. Heavier rigs wear out parts faster, so they have to be built stronger. If you're wheeling an old flat fender Jeep, they're super light. They're lighter than the YJs and the TJs and the LJs. And those are even lighter than even a 2-door JK. Certainly the 4-door JKU, and then the newer stuff, the JL stuff and the JT stuff. Depending upon what your platform is when you start your build is gonna help dictate and guide the parts that you bolt on to make it durable. The weight of your rig is going to determine what axles you need underneath it. There are a lot of different axles out there and they're all pretty awesome.
It's a little bit of shake and then wait, shake it back.
The next category that I always think about when building my rig is the tire size that I'm going to be putting on it. Obviously, the bigger the tire, the bigger the axle. If you have a very light rig, a TJ or a YJ, LJ, they're so light that you can actually get pretty good axles like a Ford 8.8, very common in a junkyard out of the back of a Ford Explorer, and a Dana 44, or even in a lot of cases, a Dana 30 for the front end of that, and happily run 37s on it all day long. We said there were some misconceptions. One of those is the fact that people think they need 40s in order to do big stuff and have a good time. Not everybody needs 40s. And in fact, most people that are running 40s don't need 40s. That's coming from a guy that's actually running 40s and 1-tons. 40s take a lot of the fun out of off-roading 95% of the time. Yeah, they're cool and yeah, they look good. When you're actually out on the trails, a very small percentage of the trails that require a tire that large. Most of the trails, probably 95%, don't require a 40-inch tire. When you have a 40, a 42, a 43 on a trail that's a little bit easier, it makes it less fun. It makes it less of a driver game. The rig becomes more of a point and shoot where your line really doesn't matter. Now, obviously, the heavier your rig is and the bigger the tire you're going to put on it, the bigger the axle you're going to need in order to make it durable and reliable. That weight, that grip, that leverage puts stress on components like ball joints, bearings, rings and pinions. Another common misconception is that a Dana 30 or even a Dana 44 is a super weak axle. They're not. The Dana 44 is a strong axle, okay? Because the ring and pinion is a little bit bigger than what's in the Dana 30, but only a little bit. The housings are exactly the same. The ball joints, the bearings, most of that stuff, it's all the same. The brakes, it's all the same. So when you have a Dana 30 or a Dana 44, you can build that housing to be pretty strong, but the one thing that you cannot change is the size of that ring and pinion. When you exceed the strength limitations of that by going with a big tire on a heavy Jeep, you're asking for trouble.
No, don't like that.
Now, of course, it's going to last a certain amount of time. If you drive it on the street, it'll probably last you forever.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
But if you're taking it off-road, depending upon the kind of off-roading you're doing, you're gonna find the limit, and you're gonna find it probably pretty quickly. So after I figured out my weight, and after I figured out my desired tire size, those two things combined kind of tell me what axles I'm gonna run in my rig. I also think about the power that the engine makes. If you're gonna V8 swap your rig, you definitely want something like a 1-ton axle. Again, you'll find people out there that have V8 swapped their rigs, and they're running Dana 44s on a heavy Jeep with 40-inch tires.
That's it. I've had it with this dump!
But their wheeling style, where they wheel, how often they wheel, all those kinds of things are going to determine how long or how short that axle's life expectancy is going to be. And the last step in this process is your wheeling experience, wheeling style, and your spotter. When you build a rig, I don't care what rig it is extremely important to get out there on the trails with someone who understands the rig. Now this is big because a lot of people hop out and they tell you what rock is in front of your tire.
Right! Who's right? Your call. You're an idiot! You're upset. Go with what you feel.
But true spotting and making a really good spotter, there's more to it than that.
You got about 12 feet. Perfect.
You have to be able to understand what the limitations are of that vehicle and how that vehicle is built. Is going to determine the lines you can take and the way that you can get away with wheeling that vehicle in order to ensure that you wind up coming home at the end of the day and with a smile on your face instead of, you know, a tow truck bill and a bunch of parts now that you need to go get and start working on it. But guys, that's my formula. Whenever I approach a build and I want to think about the way the vehicle is going to be the most reliable, capable vehicle within the budget. Obviously, notice that I didn't talk about suspension because your suspension definitely changes the capability of the vehicle, but it doesn't necessarily make it any more reliable if you do all the things here. If your rig isn't too heavy for the axles or your tires aren't too big for the axles and you wheel within the vehicle's capability with a good spotter, you'll be good and you'll have tons of fun out there on the trails. Obviously, there are better lift kits and there are cheaper lift kits and there's long arms and short arms and leaf springs and ORIs. But the bottom line is you put a good driver behind a rig that's got a good spotter and you guys can do most of the same obstacles out there, especially if you're okay maybe taking a slightly different line. At the end of the day, you're still gonna have the same amount of fun. So guys, get out there, make sure you build something, keep it within your budget, keep it affordable, keep it reliable. Otherwise it just gets stressful and then it's not fun anymore. Get out there and build something.